Emma Frame here, and welcome to Voices of Yoga podcast, co-hosted with Lindsay Porter, where we bring you inspiring yoga stories and insights from yogis and teachers from around the world. These stories highlight the benefits of yoga and encourage those who maybe haven't started yoga yet to get started, and for the more experienced to delve deeper. We hope you enjoy.
Namaste, this is Lindsay Porter of Voices of Yoga, and welcome to today's podcast, where I'm delighted to invite Graham Nolan, who's joining me from Wales, and he's the founder of River Flow Yoga. I just want to read a few words about Graham's background to give you some context. So Graham's been working in the field of senses for over 20 years and includes working with people in the deafblind community. He has a lot of experience in this area and he does sign language. And he also holds an MSc in Communications and Congenital Deafblindness, where his thesis focused on teaching social care staff mindfulness techniques in order to become better communication partners with people who are deaf and blind. So Graham combines two passions through his yoga offerings and this area, this field that he's worked in. And I'm delighted to welcome him onto the podcast today. So namaste, Graham.
Hey, namaste.
Well, it's super to have you talking about this area, as I think it's really important that we bring more awareness into our yoga for all. And I'd really like to ask you to start off by sharing with us your own journey into yoga and teaching the things that you do.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to come and speak today and kind of talk a little bit about my work. My journey was village hall yoga. It's where I am right now in my community in Wales, but it's how I started in London, actually, a really traditional British wheel village hall approach. I was the only guy 20 years ago in the class of slightly older group of women, mainly, and I started with a fantastic teacher who I still see and still in contact with, called Heather Hill. So she really started me on my journey, and I'm hugely grateful to her for kind of encouraging me and supporting me to develop my passion and interest in yoga, which kind of went in tandem and along a same journey as my professional studies, working with people with sensory loss and impairment. So I've been very lucky to kind of hold two careers that I absolutely adore. And kind of bring them alongside one another for many years, which culminated in my master's study recently, kind of joining those two worlds together, which inevitably I was going to do. So yeah, I've been practicing over 20 years of yoga and over 20 years within the sensory deafblind field. So it's been a real pleasure to take a study and to start to think about how we can progress with developing, as you said, inclusive yoga and approaches from the yoga world that's so applied to kind of embodiment theory and working with people who in a tactile modality where being in our bodies, being really present in how we communicate with people is key.
Yeah, and I'd really like to pick up on that word you use there, inclusivity, and ask you, because obviously you have a lot of experience and expertise, but there's obviously a lot more yoga being available now through the communities. When teachers have people come to them and maybe have hearing impairment, hearing loss of hearing aids, I'm just interested in your advice about, is this to be avoided, or are there sort of some top tips that teachers can feel that they're able to deliver yoga, but be mindful of certain things that can help these people?
I think that's such a good question. And my advice would be is to acknowledge that perhaps this isn't something that you've done before. I think that's a really important kind of standpoint, that if it's completely new to you and fresh to you, that you're not an expert, you're not a professional in that capacity, but a willingness to try and to work with the person is so key. One of the best pieces of advice I can give is to try things out. Ask the person, give that person as much time as you can to explain what would help them. There's so many different kinds of sensory loss, visual loss, hearing loss, and there's so many different to people, and one rule for one person will be completely different from another. There are generalizations, and there are things that you can do that are really, also helpful. But really speaking and connecting with the individual you're supporting and finding out what might help them, things like class positioning, where they are, making sure that if you, the kind of teacher who walks around the class, that you don't turn your back to that person. The list is quite mind-boggling when we break it all down, but there are really simple things you can do. But at the end of the class, one of the most important bits is to speak to that person and say, how did I get on? How did I perform today? We're in a world of feedback and kind of review systems online and in all sorts of ways, but given the opportunity to speak to a student who perhaps it was a real journey to get to that class, and it's a real kind of a real trust issue that they've come to you and said, I'd like you to be my yoga teacher. I'd like to try your yoga teaching. So reciprocating and saying at the end of the class, how did I get on? Are there things I could do differently last time? And being really open to feedback is really key, and not to take that personally as well. That feedback it can always be constructive.
I think that's really reassuring, what you've said. So thank you for that. And also, I've personally had experience of going in to teach a class to deaf and blind people. And yeah, everything you said really resonates, not to take it personally and to also make that connection. So I found for me, it was asking them permission to sort of share the vibration of an om, and have sort of my hand in a safe place for them. And but then getting the feedback, and it was kind of those bits they felt that they really enjoyed that, because it didn't matter about hearing or sight, you could feel that in the body. But that's how we learn, isn't it? And that requires us to.
Some people will want us to demonstrate and feel where our knee is, where our foot is positioned. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, it's really difficult to verbalize language that's accessible for people with visual loss. I have 2 of my students in Wales have macular degeneration, so they have lost their central vision and find it really difficult to see me at the front of class. So every single instruction I give, I really have to think about where I'm directing someone towards. I don't say over here or over there, or avoiding kind of some of the cues that we use that are quite flowery language, and try to be really precise about where it is that I would like someone to place a foot, or where it is that they're working from, or where breath is coming from. And sometimes I have to really just offer a hand to someone and say, would you like to feel on my body or my chest or top of my lungs where I'm breathing or what I mean? And that really helps people as well, is having a sense of humor with it. I can't not add that in. Being able to laugh and being able to not take yourself too seriously. So many times I get myself wrapped up in my words by trying too hard, and I end up just having to go, I am doing an absolutely horrendous job of explaining this. So I'm going to start again. and being okay with that we all make mistakes, and we're human beings at the end of the day, and it's about offering connections and the opportunities for people.
Great, thank you. And it's also interesting to go to almost the other end of the spectrum of that. So whilst it's great to encourage teachers to explore and be accessible, there's maybe another aspect where some teachers would like to maybe study or understand better the cues and people that know or feel what it's like. So I know it's interesting, we've been talking about your exploring potentially offering some teacher training in this field. Do you mind sharing us a bit more about where you're going with this?
So I work with Social Yoga and JT Manual, and we've developed some course materials together around working with children and adults with sensory loss and impairment. So that will continue to kind of blossom and grow. I've also written articles around this subject, but hopefully in the future, I'm on the horizons is developing a teacher training module for people with sensory loss themselves to become yoga teachers, because fundamentally I am a sighted hearing person, and I believe that the community of yoga for people with sensory loss will grow and develop when there are people who have those disabilities, have those conditions themselves, taking ownership and growing and developing the community. And if I can become a stepping stone to creating something to make those opportunities happen, I find that a deep privilege and something that I'm interested in doing. I have a couple of yoga teacher friends who are first language, sign language users, and there's collaborations on the cards in the future. So my website, Riverflow Yoga, if any of your listeners or viewers want to check that out, there will be updates and various bits and bobs going on around workshops and teacher trainings in the future.
Great, good one to keep an eye out for. And Graham, what else would you like to share with us about your yoga journey or your yoga teaching?
So at the moment, I moved from London to pretty much the middle of nowhere, where I live in a beautiful old Gothic chapel in mid Wales. I have nature has always inspired my yoga journey, and I'm very lucky to live here with my partner Matthew and my 3 dogs in by the river where you can go wild swimming, by the mountains where you can lose yourself. Powys in Wales is, other than the Outer Hebrides, is the least populated place in the UK. So it's a place of tranquility and space, and we offer our home to other people, yoga teachers, retreats goers and yoga students to come and take some time out of their lives and feel nourished and rejuvenated by the landscape and the surroundings. And yoga and food and art are very much being part of that journey. So that's kind of my full-time job at the moment, running that kind of business and running my local yoga classes. And I'm taking on some freelance work within other organisations. So I have a couple of offers to work in the Netherlands and in Copenhagen to almost reproduce my master's study around working with congenitally deaf-blind children and adults.
Wonderful. So at some point in the future, we might see more articles coming out from those collaborations.
Absolutely, yeah. So my thesis will be an article very soon. So it's another one of the things on my list of things to do is to write that up so that I can publish my article and my findings.
Super.
But with collaborations is one of my favourite things to do. I'm a really keen collaborator, especially when it comes down to the sensory field and yoga field. And I'm the British Girls teacher or kind of specialist around sensory loss and impairment. So if anyone out there is stuck or is confused or wants some advice, please email me or get into contact, and I'm always happy to share some time and some space to just kind of coach through or talk through scenarios and advice.
What a lovely invitation. And could you just share with the listeners then your website again and your email address and any other kind of social media links where they can find you?
So Instagram, I'm Grey Yogi. That name was not taken and I had to take it, Graham and Yoga, the Grey Yogi. And my website is called Riverflow Yoga, so www.riverflowyoga.co.uk. And my email address is graham@riverflowyoga.co.uk. So 3 ways to find me. All of them are really accessible and easy to contact me. So yeah, I'm really keen to hear from any of your viewers and listeners who want to find out more.
Thank you. And could you lastly share with us a quote or something that's inspiring your yoga journey at the moment?
Oh gosh, I mean, that's a really good question, and I go to Ram Dass because Be Here Now is one of the first texts that I came across as a teenager. That was something that kind of blew my mind a little bit, and both in terms of its artistry and it's such a beautiful text. But also in the message and the kind of the writings, the illustrations, everything about that book is just, it remains one of my favourites, and I use it in my website as well. I think those kind of, I think those sentiments of being here now is a theme that I will never intersperse or kind of thread through any of my teachings or any of my work with people, both in terms of my master's thesis was about those connections. How do we as sighted hearing people communicate with people who are congenitally deafblind? Well, now.
It's true, and it's like, it's a universal message, isn't it? And it just helps cut through all of the stuff that we're surrounded with.
Yeah, the more that we can take the dialogue and the chatter out of all the expectations and all the different worries and concerns and everything, and we really do bring ourselves fully to a communicative exchange, and that's where I see beauty.
Great. Well, Graham, I know we've been communicating for a while, and it's been a real delight to finally have you and connect with you and be able to chat more today. So thank you very much for allowing us this time. Namaste.
Oh, Lindsey, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to see you, and I hope we get to meet face to face one day. So thank you for your time, and thank you for bearing with me and giving me this opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Voices of Yoga, and we hope you feel inspired. You can find more of our free podcasts at www.voicesofyoga.com, and we are on all the main podcast platforms too. We are very open to comments and suggestions, so if you'd like to also leave us a review on iTunes, that would be fantastic. If you would like to know when the most recent podcast is going to be broadcast, you can sign up to our newsletter on the website, and we will drop you an email with that recent update. Voices of Yoga is our passion project, and if you like what we're doing and you would like to support us, it would be very much appreciated. And you can do that through a very small donation on our website on the donation button if you feel so inclined. If you would like to collaborate with us in terms of sponsorship, advertising, or even suggest coming on and being a guest, then please drop us an email at voicesofyoga@mail.com. So thanks again, and we look forward to bringing you another inspiring yoga story next week. Namaste.